Hey everybody, today I think we're going to head out to the ranch and put together these new move bumpers I got for the old Tacoma here. So we had been driving back and forth between Alaska and Oregon for a fair bit, and there are a lot of animals crisscrossing the road there. Had a couple close calls, so my plan was I wanted to get a bumper that might actually shrug some of this off if I actually hit something. So went online, I was looking at some stuff, and there was this company called Move Bumpers that will give you a kit to weld together your own bumper. And since I've welded a little bit in the past, I do know some people that know a fair bit about welding, so I considered like, hey, I can save a little bit of money, I can kind of refresh my memory on how to do some of this welding stuff, probably get a little better at it by the end of it, deal with a ton of frustration. Who doesn't like another project? So yeah, ordered a front and a rear bumper from them with some lights. So I am going to load all that up and head over to the ranch where me and the old man are gonna start putting these together. Just a quick view of what I got. They showed up in like 3 boxes. They all kind of look like this. They give you a bunch of these metal parts packed together in some foam. Everything seems like it arrived just fine, so it is a bunch of nondescript metal bits that you throw all together and it becomes a bumper. Good Lord willing. Also got some lights. Those are those in there, so that'll help with some of the real dark driving we were doing out on the highway. Be nice to have a little more projection when you're just out there in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, I'll bring you along. Okay, I have my truck pulled into the shop here. First things first, I've got all the pieces out here. I'm trying to like lay everything out, figure out what goes where, but I need to get this bumper off first. The thing I find handy, if you can manage, is when you take a screw out, just screw it back into the, take the part off and screw the screw back into the hole so you know where it goes and then you don't lose it. Because I lose stuff all the time. But a little less so now that I've started doing that. Oof. Okay. Wow. Okay. I got all the plastic off. Grill's off. Plastic part is off. I've got to take the actual bumper off, and then we can start fitting everything on there because it bolts in right about there. This is the real bumper. Everything else was just for show. Yeah, now that I got a bigger hole there, I mean, it's kind of like I'd have to figure out some sort of harness or a bracket in there to mount them anyway.
I don't think that that's going to be an issue. This is squared up correctly.
Alright.
Precision clamp on it.
Very precise. We got these parts tack welded in right here. This is going to be the receivers for adding like a winch that's on a receiver. So I've got one on either side. We've ground these down. We've actually chamfered this right here. We're going to weld it in right here. This is not looking too bad. Everything is tacked on right about where it needs to be. Then we get ourselves some welding going. All right, I've done all of the interior welds here to kind of tack it all together. Well, it's more than tack together. This is actually put together. I have to move to the other side and start doing all of our outside welds, clean all this up. I'm not the best welder there is, so I'm learning a whole lot right now. But clean a lot of this slag up. Finish all of our welds here. I've got my 2-inch receivers that we've modified and put in the front. Bought these little babies at Harbor Freight, so some excellent steel going on. Some of it's not bad. And then we'll put these brackets on. Mount the lights. We'll be good to go. So this all fit together during our initial put together, but we tacked it all together and stuff like that. But then once we finally started welding, it pulled apart a little bit. So we've got to auger out these holes a little bit for the mounting surface, then put it on and center our bumper, and then we're probably going to weld some big washers on here to stiffen this up and give it the bolts and the screws a place to, or bolts and nuts a place to grab onto for the mounting. So not ideal, but probably what we should have done to accommodate the stretching from the whole welding thing is just to put some sort of brace on to maintain the distance between these while we were welding. So now we know, just got to do a little fixing.
Just pull up on your side a little bit there. Okay. Yeah. Too much. There's enough clearance to get that in there. Let's try it. Real unpleasant dog. Stinks. It's ornery. Nasty. Wants to bite me all the time. He bit me last night.
Did he?
Throwing the ball.
Oh.
Take
it from me. Ah!
Right there.
Gee, Pete.
I went to get the ball, throw it for me, and went to grab it. Bit me good, you little booger. Okay, got that? Yep. Yeah, nice.
Not too bad.
Yeah, okay. No break time. That's
Hey, Pete. That doesn't look too bad. Little gap right here. We can fill that with some maybe rubber tubing to kind of trim. Yeah. Yep. All right, I've got all this cleaned up right here. So the last thing we need to do is this part right here covers over this gap between the two stanchions. I don't know what you call these, but they support the tubing. So it's supposed to close this gap right here. So if I read the instructions correctly, you have to put that right there and then pin it down and weld it as you go. So that'll be exciting. And then it's just a bunch of cleanup, finishing up the welds around the tubing, doing different cleanup. We got to do some welds right here still, make sure it's all in the right spot, and then it's the finish work, painting, priming, blah blah blah. All right, I have finished welding all of this stuff, welding all the parts together. We have gone through and ground down all of the, as best as I could, I've tried to get in here and grind down all of the different welds that we've done, try to make them as smooth as possible. Some of the stuff was a lot. I'm not a fantastic welder, but I've certainly learned a lot on this project right here. There's been a lot of learning opportunities as far as like the different angles that you're grinding. You're doing outside angles, you're doing inside angles, you're trying to do some round stuff right here. So I got in and ground all that down using the 4-inch angle grinder with some different grits of sanding wheel, flap wheel. So now what I'm going to do is there are some, my plan is I'm going to hit this with some primer and then probably put some sort of bed liner on it, just probably a rattle can thing, since I'm not going to go and get this thing powder coated or professionally painted and then drive it all over Alaska taking rocks in the face. So I'm going to go through and hit all of these different little areas like this with some Bondo so that it provides a little bit of a more even surface for when the paint happens and you're not going to see a lot of these imperfections going on. It's going to look a little bit nicer if I do a little bit of fill. So that's the plan for today. All right, so we're doing the Bondo right here. I'm trying to fill all these crannies. So when you're doing this, I usually use some sort of scraper. Rubber ones are nice because they got a little more give, but I've got this metal one. You work with the tools you got. Usually about a 3-inch diameter thing. You should probably look at the directions on your particular can, but mine is about 3 inches diameter of the actual Bondo. And then you get this hardener that comes in a little tube. You got to mix the two together, so about 3 inches of that. So, and then you just mix it together and put it on. Good old Bob Ross action here. All right, once it's about like that, mixed together, start putting this thing on. I'm just gonna go over, try to even out some of these divots. There's a little more of the things that are right here that are kind of little nook. I think some of the smaller ones are probably gonna be covered by when I put it on the bed liner. So that might not be too bad, but if there's a bigger one, I'm gonna try to like fill it in a little bit. So that's the plan. And once you mix it together, it actually starts to harden. So you got to work a little bit quick. You can't come back to this in 15 minutes. Your Bondo is gonna be bonding. All right, now that that's all done, I just have to wait for it to cook off, and then once it's kind of all finished, you can sand it down and make it actually look good. You can get rid of all these drips and stuff like that, but I find that sometimes if you're just there messing with it and trying to shape it while it's wet, you can get pretty close, but you'll just wind up kind of sometimes making things worse. So what I like to do is put it on there a little bit more than you need it to, and you can do your finish sanding later. It sands a heck of a lot easier than the metal though, so it shouldn't be too bad to finish the process. So that's that. I'm gonna let that cook off, and then we'll finish up with some sanding and then get to painting. All right, so we have got most of the Bondo work done on here. I filled in a lot of the different cracks, now sanded it down and got it ready for paint. So we've got that done. There might just be a couple touch-ups we have to do during the process, but it should be just about done for that. Next step is to get it mounted back up. There was a couple issues that we had with fitment after we had done all the welds, so we have to do a little bit of adjustments on the bolts on the way back in, but this is where your bumper mounts right here. There's 3 bolts that come out of, this is the actual bumper that's on your Tacoma. And then it's just a big old plastic cover. All right, so it's time to start painting this. I've already got it primed, so I just got to throw the final layer on there. And I was thinking of doing this, well, I'm not thinking, I'm actually doing it, this truck bed coating. So I'm going to cover over the front of that, probably use something about the same on the inside. Though I might just try, I'll see how far I can make it with this. And maybe in the bottom area, I might actually use some undercoating. So here we go. All right, that's done. Well, I mean, I got to flip it over and try to get the other side because I can only see one side from here, and it's a little bit drippy. So I'll have to touch that up after it dries a little bit. I don't think it looks too bad though. Yeah, let that dry a little bit, try to hit the other side. Okay, well here she is in all her glory. Got a couple bugs on it because I just drove it around out to Eastern Oregon and back. So this is how she looks. There's still some finish work to be done. A big thing that's going to happen is that, you'll notice I've got this all zip tied. I've got to figure out what to do with the, whatever you call these, wheel liners, the fender flares. They're not going to fit in the back here, so you got to figure out what to do with that. And then the big thing is all of your plastic down here is also not going to fit anymore, and it's moving around and scraping my tires. So I've got to figure out how to attach that to the front of the bumper to kind of keep it all in place while you're driving down the road. Other than that, there's still some trim to be done. My plan was to kind of take some rubber hose and go around the trim portions right here, kind of like that, around the headlights and everything. So still got to do a bunch of that. There's wiring to be done on the lights. Yeah, other than that, it's just some touch-up and finish work, but that's the bulk of the welding and painting and everything done on the front one. So looks like it might take a hit or two from whatever the world throws at you. So it's a little bit safer. One of the things that has come up is that you've got your radar inside your emblem right here for your cruise control, and this bar is in the way, so the radar doesn't work anymore. I'm told that it probably, you can't really move that radar very easily without having to readjust it because it's got something to do with some cameras that are mounted in other places in the truck. So if you're going to be doing this and you're going to be putting this center bar in like I did, you probably should be prepared that your radar is not going to work anymore. So, occupational hazard there. Anyway, that's that project done. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you somewhere else.